try to reach more people. So today's live stream is, well, actually it's 12:20 a.m. where I am. So I guess this morning's live stream is about false analogy, Hebrews 3:4. But since I like context, I'm going to read verses 1 through 7. Or 1 through 6, rather. So, therefore, holy brothers and sisters who share in the heavenly calling, fix your thoughts on Jesus, whom we acknowledge as our apostle and high priest. He was faithful to the one who appointed him, just as Moses was faithful in all God's house. Jesus has been found worthy of greater honor than Moses, just as the builder of a house has greater honor than the house itself. For every house is built by someone, but God is the builder of everything. Moses was faithful as a servant in all God's house, bearing witness to what would be spoken by God in the future. But Christ is faithful as the Son over God's house, and we are his house, if indeed we hold firmly to our confidence and the hope in which we glory. Alright, so the focal point is going to be Hebrews 3:4. For every house is built by someone, but God is the builder of everything. Now, most of you probably already know this, but it is a false analogy because we know that houses are built. We know a house can't just build itself. But we do not know that a universe cannot build itself. And moreover, we know that simple chemicals can transform themselves into more complicated chemicals. We know that RNA can form from simple chemicals. And therefore it is not a big leap of logic to say that, the universe maybe didn't create itself, and the universe maybe never even had a beginning. We don't know. We just don't know. And to say God done it for something we don't know. Okay, let's put it this way. Before we knew what thunder was, what did we attribute it to? We attributed it to God. Look at Thor. Thor is the Norse god of thunder. According to Norse mythology, thunder was the hammer of Thor. Now we don't need Thor as an answer for thunder because we know what thunder is. So, as our scientific knowledge grows, the place for God gets smaller and smaller and smaller. And another thing is, if we just say God done it, we're never going to grow. Hey, Brian. Okay, gotcha. So anyway, I was just saying how our um, scientific knowledge, as it grows, makes the gap for God smaller and smaller and smaller, and how Hebrews 3:4, for every house has a builder, but the builder of everything is God, is actually a false analogy, because we know houses have builders. We know houses can't just build themselves. Hey, TV Tube me. So it's a false analogy. And, I just get these ideas from, different places. And it just, I know when I was a Christian, it didn't make any sense to me how people could say, the universe just popped into existence. It still blows my mind, but it's not as big of a stretch to me now as it was when I was a Christian. Yes, Brian. Brian Stevens says at best a bad analogy. Yes, very much so. Because we don't know that the universe had a creator or a builder or anything else. We don't know that. We know houses have builders. There's not a house ever in the history of human history that has not had a builder. Period. We know houses have builders. And like I said, when I was a Christian, it made perfect sense to me. And now it just doesn't make any sense at all. How somebody can compare a house to a universe. And another thing is, in order, we know humans build houses, right? So, in order to build a house, the builder has to be outside the house, right? Well, in order for God to build the universe, he has to be outside the universe, meaning he has to be out of space-time. As far as we know, nothing is outside of space-time. Except maybe the beginning of the Big Bang. And nobody knows enough about the beginning of the Big Bang to say that. So I am not saying that. I am just saying that the concept of a God cannot be outside of space-time. And it just and that's not really what he's talking about anyway in that verse. He's not talking about, well, God had to created the universe. That's not really what he's talking about. He's talking about Christ and the Church of Christ, not as in the incorporated Church of Christ, but the Christian body. That's what he's talking about. He's saying God built the Christian body. He's not talking about God created the universe. And if you look at it in context, you can see that's what he's saying. But Christians take things out of context all the time. And I used to do this too, but I cannot understand how they do that anymore. Even though I used to be one of them that took verses out of context. I don't see how they can do that anymore. It just, the further along I get into my agnosticism, the further and further I get away from that point of thinking like a Christian. And it sometimes bothers me because I feel like okay, alright, thanks TV2B. Hey Purple. So if you can't be bothered to think about these things, then the simplistic answers given to you by religion, specifically Christianity, they're going to make sense to you because you can't be bothered to think about it. I will look that book up, TV2Me. I think I may even have it. I'm not sure. But it just... I was asking TV2Me about why Jehovah's Witnesses and other cult members don't see that they're being lied to, which is what he or she is talking about in the chat, just so you guys know. Purple, that was me. I thought, you know what, the truth can stand up to anything, so I'm going to look at everything, put every preconceived notion out of my mind, and I'm going to go through everything like everything is in the Bible and stuff like that. And that's how I was like, wait a minute, this doesn't make any sense. And I'm talking about Christianity because I was a Christian. When you're in Christianity, you don't see the contradictions in the Bible. You don't see the two creation stories. You don't see the two Red Sea crossing stories. You don't see the two divvying up of Canaan stories. You just don't see these things. And I think it's because people rely on their religious leaders too much, and maybe the religious leaders don't even see these things because they've been conditioned over years and years and years and years and years not to see these things. But then your eyes get open and you're like, wow, I never saw that before. And you just can't, I couldn't be an honest person and remain a Christian. Some people can. Not saying anything about those people. Some people can. But I couldn't. And, you know, all of this deception, and like I said, sometimes sometimes I don't even blame the religious leaders of our day, because the deception goes back quite a ways. You know, you've got the beginning of the Catholic Church, which was in the 300s, and then you've got, you know, the Reformation, the Protestant Reformation, which was in the 1500s and 1600s, I believe. So, this is true purple. Or another thing that they'll say is, well, the writers got it wrong. Well, why did God use writers to write the Bible then? Why didn't he use angels? Why didn't he write it out himself? I mean, seriously, if there is a God, which I don't believe that, I believe there may be a deistic God or a Zeus-like God, but it doesn't impact my life. So, for all intents and purposes, there is no God, is how I look at it. But I will go ahead and say, you know, there's a chance that a deistic God exists, or a Zeus-like God exists. You can't really say, well, if there's an error in the Bible, then it's the error of men and not of God. Because if God is all powerful and all knowing and blah 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 blah, then why on earth did he use men who he knew was going to, pardon my French, fuck it up in the first place? Why didn't he write it? That's my question. Why didn't he write it? Or why didn't he use his angels to write it? Hey, Muggles. Yes, it did. The original 1611 KJV did have the Apocrypha in it. So that's my question. You know, why didn't God write the Bible himself? He could have. I mean, if he's all that, he could have, but he didn't. This is true, Brian. Brian says mental gymnastics to keep bias is a lazy thinker's game. So, those are just my thoughts. And coming back to the false analogy of Hebrews 3:4, you know, if God had inspired people to write the Bible, wouldn't you think that it wouldn't have that false analogy in it? I mean, God would know that was a false analogy, right? I mean, unless God is dumber than us, his creation. So, it just doesn't make any sense. This is true, Muggles. So, anyway, those are just my thoughts on Hebrews 3:4. Every house has a builder, but the builder of everything is God. False analogy. Those are just my thoughts. And I think I'm going to go. And I will see you guys later. Have a great night. Don't forget to subscribe if you're not subscribed. And hit that like button.